My sister called me in the middle of the night and said, "Mom died last night. I inherited everything. You get nothing." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I smiled because she had no idea what my mother really left behind. Before this story begins, subscribe if you believe family secrets always come out, like if you enjoy shocking real-life style drama, and comment if you think inheritance always destroys families. Now listen carefully because this story changes everything. The phone rang at 2:17 a.m. I remember the exact time because I had just rolled over, annoyed that sleep was finally finding me after another long empty night. My apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. When I saw my sister's name flash on the screen, my stomach tightened. We didn't talk at night. We barely talked at all. I answered anyway. "Hello." Her voice came sharp and controlled, the way it always did when she thought she had power. "Mom died last night." The words hit me, but not the way they should have. No scream. No sob. Just a sudden stillness in my chest, like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. "Oh," I said quietly. There was a pause on the line, as if she expected me to collapse. When I didn't, she continued, faster now, almost excited. "I inherited everything. The house. The money. The accounts. You get nothing." She exhaled, satisfied, like someone who had just delivered a final verdict. I sat up in bed, pulling the sheet around my shoulders. For a moment memories rushed in, my mother's tired smile, her hands always working, always cleaning up after everyone else. The last time I saw her, she looked smaller somehow. Fragile. Like she was already disappearing. "I just thought you should know," my sister added. "There's no need for you to come. The funeral's already handled." I said nothing. "Are you there?" she snapped. "Yes," I replied softly. And then I smiled. Not because my mother was gone. Not because I had been cut out. I smiled because my sister had always underestimated me, and my mother had never made that mistake. "You sound calm," my sister said suspiciously. "I am," I answered. She scoffed. "Figures. You were never close to Mom anyway." That was the lie she had been telling herself for years. Growing up, my sister was the golden child. Loud. Confident. Always demanding attention. She lived in the main house with Mom, while I moved out early, working 2 jobs and building a quiet life away from the constant drama. But what my sister never noticed, never cared to notice, was who Mom called when she was scared, who took her to doctor appointments, who managed her bills when her hands started shaking too badly to write. It wasn't my sister. It was me. "Don't worry," my sister continued. "I'll take care of everything. You don't have to do anything." "I won't," I said. She laughed. "Good. Goodbye." The line went dead. I sat there in the dark for a long time, phone still pressed to my ear. When I finally lowered it, I didn't cry. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared out the window at the city lights. My mother was gone. And yet, something felt unfinished. At sunrise, I received an email. From Evelyn Carter, attorney at law. Subject: confidential regarding Margaret Hale. My heart skipped. I hadn't heard that name, my mother's full name, in years. The email was short. "Please contact my office as soon as possible. Your mother requested a private meeting with you before her passing. There are matters that require your immediate attention." I read it twice, then 3 times. So my sister was wrong. Or rather, she had been told exactly what my mother wanted her to hear. By noon, I was standing in front of a quiet brick building downtown, my palms damp as I pushed open the glass door. The receptionist smiled politely and asked my name. When I gave it, her expression changed. "Oh, she's been expecting you." That's when I knew. Whatever my sister thought she inherited, whatever she believed she had won, this story was far from over. And my mother, silent, underestimated, dismissed, had made sure of that. The attorney's office smelled like old books and lemon polish. Everything inside felt deliberately calm, as if emotions were checked at the door along with coats and umbrellas. I sat in a leather chair that creaked softly when I shifted, my hands folded in my lap, my pulse steady in a way that surprised even me. Across from me sat Evelyn Carter. She was in her early 60s, silver hair pulled back neatly, sharp eyes behind thin-framed glasses. This was not a woman who dealt in gossip or sentiment. She dealt in facts and consequences. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, not unkindly. "Your mother was very clear-minded until the end." I nodded. "That's good to hear." Evelyn studied me for a moment. "Your sister has already contacted my office. Several times, actually." I almost laughed. "I'm not surprised. She believes," Evelyn continued carefully, "that she is the sole beneficiary of your mother's estate." I leaned back slightly. Believes is the key word. Evelyn's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Your mother anticipated this situation." She reached for a thick folder on her desk. It was labeled with my mother's name, written in neat, precise handwriting. Seeing it made my chest tighten. This wasn't just paperwork. This was the final record of a woman who had spent her life being ignored, while quietly paying attention to everything. "Before we continue," Evelyn said, "I need to confirm something. Did your sister inform you that there was a will?" "Yes," I replied. "She said Mom left everything to her." Evelyn nodded slowly. "That is partially true." I raised an eyebrow. "There is more than one will," she said. The room seemed to go very still. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Your mother executed 2 legal documents," Evelyn explained. "One is a public-facing will, filed and registered according to standard procedure. That is the will your sister has seen." "And the other?" I asked. "The other," Evelyn said, tapping the folder gently, "is a private trust and final directive, legally binding, notarized, and witnessed. It was activated upon your mother's death, and only disclosed to you." For the first time since the phone call, my breath caught. "She knew," Evelyn continued, "that your sister would rush to secure assets. She also knew your sister would never imagine there was anything beyond what she could see." That sounded exactly like my mother. Evelyn opened the folder and slid a document toward me. "This," she said, "is the real inheritance." I scanned the first page, my eyes moving faster with each line. The house my sister bragged about? It was already mortgaged by Mom into a trust one controlled. The bank accounts? Jointly frozen pending my authorization. The business my sister believed she owned outright? Transferred 6 months ago into a holding company, with me listed as managing beneficiary. I looked up slowly. "She planned this?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "Meticulously." A memory surfaced then. My mother sitting at my kitchen table months ago, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. "Promise me something," she'd said. "When the time comes, don't argue. Don't fight. Just listen." At the time I thought she was talking about family drama. She was talking about this. "There's more," Evelyn said. She turned another page. "Your mother left your sister what she called a lesson inheritance." I frowned. "A what?" "A staged inheritance," Evelyn clarified. "Your sister was meant to believe she had one, long enough to reveal her true intentions." My stomach tightened. "How long?" 90 days, Evelyn said calmly. "For 90 days my sister could live in the house, access limited funds, make decisions, bad ones if she chose. Every action documented, every move legally monitored." "Why would Mom do that?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Evelyn met my eyes. "Because your mother suspected financial abuse." The word hung in the air. "She believed," Evelyn continued, "that your sister had been pressuring her, manipulating her, isolating her." I thought of unanswered calls, missed visits. Mom always saying, "Your sister's busy. She'll call you later." She didn't want confrontation, Evelyn said. She wanted proof. My hands clenched. "So what happens after 90 days? Evelyn closed the folder. "Ownership transfers. Authority shifts. The illusion ends." "And my sister?" I asked. "She gets exactly what your mother intended," Evelyn replied. "Nothing." A knock interrupted us. The receptionist poked her head in. "Miss Carter, your other client is here." I didn't need to ask who. Moments later my sister walked in, dressed in black, sunglasses perched on her head, face tight with performative grief. She stopped short when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. Evelyn stood. "Please have a seat." My sister didn't sit. "You told me everything was handled," she said sharply to Evelyn. "You said the will was clear." It is, Evelyn replied evenly. But not in the way you assume. My sister's eyes flicked to me. What is she doing here? I stood slowly. I was invited, I said. Her laugh was sharp, brittle. Invited to what? There's nothing left for you. Evelyn folded her hands. Actually, Miss Hale, this meeting concerns oversight. Oversight of what? My sister demanded. Evelyn looked at her steadily. Of you. The silence that followed was thick. My sister's face flushed. This is ridiculous. I'm the executor. For now, Evelyn said. My sister turned to me, eyes blazing. What did you do? I smiled gently. Nothing, I said. I just listened. Like Mom asked. And in that moment, for the first time in her life, my sister realized she wasn't in control of the story anymore. My sister stormed out of the attorney's office like a thunderclap that had missed its mark. The door slammed so hard the glass rattled. The receptionist froze mid-keystroke. Evelyn Carter didn't flinch. She simply watched the door settle back into place, then turned to me with a look that said she had seen this exact reaction more times than she could count. She's angry, Evelyn said calmly. She always is when things don't go her way, I replied. Evelyn nodded. Anger makes people careless. Your mother understood that. I exhaled slowly, my pulse finally catching up to the moment. So what happens now? Now, Evelyn said, sliding a smaller folder toward me, we observe. Inside were documents outlining the trust's monitoring conditions. Every withdrawal, every contract signed, every decision my sister made regarding the house, the business, or my mother's assets would be logged and reviewed. She thinks she won, I said quietly. She needs to think that, Evelyn replied. Confidence is what will expose her. I left the office feeling heavier and lighter at the same time. My mother was gone, but her voice was everywhere. In the planning, in the patience, in the way she had chosen not revenge but truth. By the next morning my phone began buzzing. Missed calls, unread messages. All from my sister. I didn't answer. Instead I watched. Through the trust's secure portal, I could see activity begin almost immediately. Day 1. She transferred money from Mom's savings into her personal account, just under the threshold that would raise automatic red flags. Day 3. She listed Mom's car for sale. A quick flip. Cash in hand. Day 5. She threw a small family gathering at the house. At least 30 people showed up, judging by the catering invoice. I imagined her walking through the rooms like a queen reclaiming her throne, wearing Mom's jewelry, sitting in Mom's favorite chair, declaring loudly that everything was finally hers. The irony burned. On day 7 she finally called me again. I answered this time. What do you want? She snapped, skipping any pretense. I just wanted to check on you, I said softly. You lost Mom too. She scoffed. Don't play fake sympathy with me. I know you're trying something. I'm not trying anything, I replied honestly. I'm staying out of it. You better, she warned. Because legally, you don't exist in this equation. I almost laughed. Of course, I said. Take care of things. She hung up without another word. Behind the scenes, things escalated. By the second week, my sister contacted contractors, without reviewing contracts carefully. She approved renovations to the house that violated zoning codes Mom had specifically warned her about years ago. By week 3, she attempted to leverage the business, Mom's small but profitable rental management firm, as collateral for a personal loan. Denied. Then again. Denied again. That's when desperation crept in. She began selling furniture. Antiques Mom had carefully collected. Items explicitly listed as non-liquid assets in the trust. Each sale triggered an alert. Each alert was logged. Each mistake stacked neatly on top of the last. Meanwhile, I lived my life quietly. Went to work. Cooked dinner. Slept. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I let the truth assemble itself. Then came the first confrontation. I was at the grocery store when she cornered me in the parking lot. You think you're smart, she hissed, blocking my car door. You think I don't know you're involved. I met her gaze evenly. I think you're grieving. Her laugh was hollow. Grieving? I'm fixing what Mom left behind. She was weak at the end. Confused. That word weak hit something deep. She wasn't confused, I said quietly. My sister stepped closer. Then why did she leave you nothing? I held her stare. She didn't. The silence stretched. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means, I said, gently but firmly, you should slow down. She scoffed. You're bluffing. Am I? I asked. Her phone buzzed then. She glanced at it, and her face drained of color. I didn't need to see the screen to know what it was. Another notice. Another denial. Another crack. You did this, she whispered. I shook my head. You're doing it yourself. She stepped back, anger flashing into panic. You always thought you were better than me. No, I said softly. I just paid attention. She stormed off, tires screeching as she sped away. That night, I received a message from Evelyn. Subject: escalation confirmed. Your sister has initiated actions that directly violate the trust's protective clauses. If behavior continues, the 90-day observation period may conclude early. I stared at the message for a long time. My mother had loved both of us, but she had trusted one of us. And trust, once broken, leaves a paper trail. I replied with one sentence. Let it continue. Because the truth wasn't done revealing itself yet. By the fourth week, the house itself seemed to rebel against my sister. It started small. A pipe burst in the upstairs bathroom, one my mother had repeatedly warned needed maintenance. The repair estimate was steep, and because my sister had already exceeded discretionary limits, the trust flagged the expense for review. She paid out of pocket. Then the heating system failed. Then the security company Mom had hired years ago called to report that the contract had been canceled by my sister, without installing an alternative. 2 days later there was a break-in attempt. Nothing major was stolen, but the police report went on record. Every incident stacked higher. Every choice she made echoed louder. Evelyn called me late one afternoon. She's spiraling, she said plainly. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. How bad? She's taking loans against future income she doesn't actually control. She's forging urgency where none exists. That's usually a sign. A sign of what? Of someone who believes time is running out, Evelyn replied. I thought of my sister pacing the living room. Phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp, blaming everyone but herself. I had seen that look before, when consequences crept closer than she expected. What happens if she defaults? I asked. Evelyn paused. Then the illusion collapses early. That night, my sister showed up at my apartment. No warning. No call. Just furious knocking. When I opened the door, she pushed past me like she owned the place. You think this is funny? She shouted, pacing. Watching me struggle? I'm not watching, I said calmly. You came here. She turned on me, eyes bloodshot, mascara smudged. The banks won't approve anything. Contractors won't wait. People are questioning my authority. I folded my arms. That sounds stressful. Her laugh cracked. Don't pretend you care. I do care, I said quietly. That's why I'm concerned. Concerned about what? She snapped. I met her gaze. About how fast you're burning through things Mom spent her whole life protecting. For a split second, doubt flickered across her face. Then pride slammed the door shut. She left it to me, my sister insisted, because I was there. I didn't argue. Instead, I walked to my desk and pulled out a single envelope. She froze. What's that? She asked. Something Mom asked me to hold on to, I said. Her eyes widened. You're lying. I'm not, I replied. She said you'd come looking for help. Eventually. I didn't hand it to her. I just let her see her name written in my mother's careful handwriting. Her breath hitched. What does it say? I shook my head. It's not time. Her voice rose. You don't get to decide that. I looked at her steadily. Apparently I do. She lunged for the envelope. I stepped back. Leave, I said firmly. Her hands trembled. You think Mom trusted you more than me? Yes, I answered honestly. The word landed like a slap. She stared at me, stunned. Then fury took over. You always thought you were the victim, she screamed. You left. You abandoned her. I swallowed. I stayed in every way that mattered. She stormed out. slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell from the wall. I didn't chase her. 2 days later, the house inspection report arrived. Violations. Unauthorized renovations. Structural concerns worsened by rushed work. The city issued a warning. The house could not be sold, could not be refinanced, could not be altered further without compliance. My sister's greatest asset became her biggest liability. That evening, Evelyn forwarded me an internal memo. Your sister attempted to access the trust's reserve funds using falsified documentation. Access denied. This constitutes a material breach. My chest tightened. How much longer? I asked when I called her. Not long, Evelyn replied. She's unraveling faster than your mother anticipated. And the letter? I asked. Evelyn exhaled softly. Your mother wrote several. The one you're holding is the hardest. I thought of my sister's face when she saw that envelope. The fear beneath the anger. Mom had known. She had known exactly how this would go. The next morning I drove past the house for the first time since Mom died. It looked the same on the outside. Quiet. Respectable. Strong. But I knew better. Inside, the walls were listening. And soon they would speak. The envelope sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. I didn't open it. Not because I was afraid of what it said, but because I knew it would change everything once I did. My mother had always been deliberate with her words. When she wrote something down, it wasn't to soothe. It was to be understood. On the 4th morning I made coffee, sat down, and finally broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No legal language. No instructions. Just my mother's handwriting. Steady but thinner than I remembered. My dear daughters, if you are reading this together, then miracles still exist. If only one of you is reading this, then things have unfolded exactly as I feared. My throat tightened. I loved you both. But love does not mean blindness. One of you learned to listen. The other learned to take. I tried to teach balance. I failed. I stopped there, hands trembling. My mother had never spoken that plainly. This letter is not forgiveness. It is not a second chance. It is an explanation. I could almost hear her voice. I watched power change one of you. I watched kindness turn into leverage. I watched fear turn into control. And I stayed quiet longer than I should have. Tears blurred the ink. If you are reading this, then you already know who I trusted. That trust was not a reward. It was a responsibility. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. I understood now. This letter wasn't meant to stop my sister. It was meant to explain why my mother didn't. That afternoon Evelyn called. It's time, she said. For what? I asked, though my heart already knew. To end the observation period, she replied. Your sister crossed the final line this morning. I closed my eyes. What did she do? She attempted to transfer the house into a third party's name using forged authority, Evelyn said evenly. We have the documents. We have the witnesses. A pause. And we have your mother's contingency clause. I exhaled slowly. So it's over. Yes, Evelyn said. But it won't feel that way to her. By evening, my sister was officially notified. She didn't call me. She showed up again. This time she looked smaller. Her confidence had collapsed inward, replaced by sharp panic and something dangerously close to desperation. They froze everything, she said the moment I opened the door. They're saying I don't have authority. They're saying you do. I stepped aside and let her in. She paced the living room like a trapped animal. You planned this. You and that lawyer. No, I said calmly. Mom did. Her voice cracked. That's not possible. She wouldn't do this to me. I walked to the table and placed the envelope between us. She already did, I said. Before she died. My sister stared at it like it might explode. What is that? She whispered. A letter, I said. From Mom. Her eyes filled with something like hope. Does it say she forgives me? I didn't answer. Give it to me, she demanded. Sit down, I said. She hesitated, then collapsed into the chair. I slid the letter toward her but didn't let go. This letter doesn't change anything legally, I said. It only explains why. She swallowed. Why what? Why you lost, I replied. Her hands shook as she took the letter and began to read. I watched her face change line by line. The anger drained first. Then the arrogance. Then the denial. By the end, her shoulders were slumped. She thought I was abusing her, my sister whispered. She thought you were controlling her, I corrected gently. That's not the same thing. My sister laughed weakly. I was just helping. Help doesn't require fear, I said. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she looked up at me. So what now? She asked. I stood. Now, I said. I do what Mom trusted me to do. And that is, she asked. I met her eyes. I protect what's left. Her voice dropped. And me. I hesitated. For you, I said slowly. There's nothing left to protect. Her breath hitched. You're going to ruin me. I shook my head. You did that yourself. She stood abruptly. You always wanted this. No, I said firmly. I wanted peace. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she never had. She left without another word. That night, I logged into the trust portal for the first time as sole authority. I didn't liquidate anything. I didn't sell anything. I restored. Accounts stabilized. Contracts corrected. Repairs scheduled properly. The house began to breathe again. And somewhere deep inside me, so did my mother's memory. But the story wasn't finished. Because consequences don't end when the truth is revealed. They end when they're lived. The truth didn't explode. It leaked. Slowly at first, like water seeping through cracked stone. Quiet, unstoppable. Impossible to ignore once it started. The first call came from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. I heard there was confusion about the will, she said cautiously. I almost smiled. By the end of the week, everyone had heard. Family group chats lit up. Old friends resurfaced. Even neighbors from my mother's street, people who once nodded politely and minded their business, suddenly had questions. My sister had been telling her own version of the story. That I had manipulated Mom. That I had turned the lawyer against her. That I had stolen everything while she was grieving. She posted vague, dramatic messages online. Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Blood means nothing when greed takes over. People reacted, commented, speculated. But gossip has a way of unraveling when facts walk into the room. Evelyn advised me not to respond publicly. Let the documentation speak, she said. Emotion fades. Paper doesn't. And she was right. Within days, legal notices became public record. Unauthorized transactions. Forged documents. Denied transfers. The narrative shifted. People began asking my sister uncomfortable questions. Why did she rush so fast? Why were there so many irregularities? Why had Mom created contingencies at all? Pressure does strange things to people. She cracked during the memorial. It was supposed to be simple, small, respectful. She arrived late, dressed in black that looked more like armor than mourning. When she stepped up to speak, her hands shook. She loved me, my sister said, voice quivering. I was there when no one else was. I felt the room stiffen. She trusted me, she continued louder now. And she would be heartbroken to see what's being done in her name. That was when Evelyn stood. With respect, she said calmly. Margaret Hale made her intentions very clear. Every head turned. My sister froze. She prepared comprehensive records, Evelyn continued, including financial logs, medical notes, and sworn statements. A murmur rippled through the room. She entrusted final authority to the person she believed would honor her wishes. Evelyn turned toward me. Silence fell. My sister's face drained of color. No, she whispered. You can't do this here. I didn't, I said softly. You did. She tried to leave, but family members blocked the aisle. Questions came fast. You forged Mom's signature? You tried to sell the house? Is that why the police were there? She broke. I was protecting her, she screamed. She was weak. That word again. And the moment it left her mouth, she knew. The room went dead silent. She wasn't weak, I said, standing. My voice didn't shake. She was tired. And you scared her. Gasps. My sister collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Not in grief, but in exposure. After that, everything moved quickly. The business partners withdrew. The banks closed doors. Friends stopped calling. My sister retreated into silence. One evening she left a voicemail. "I don't know who I am without it," she said. "Without control." I didn't call back. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the truth alone. Weeks passed. The house was repaired properly. The trust stabilized fully. My mother's legacy, quiet, careful, dignified, was preserved. I visited the house one last time before listing it for long-term stewardship, not sale. I stood in the doorway of her bedroom and felt something like peace. On the nightstand sat a photo of us as children. Both of us smiling. Both of us innocent. I understood then. My mother didn't divide us. She revealed us. By the time winter arrived, my sister had disappeared from everyone's conversations. Not because people forgot her, but because there was nothing left to say. The drama burned itself out the way it always does. Loud at first, then quieter, then suddenly irrelevant. Consequences have a way of making noise unnecessary. I heard about her through fragments. She moved out of the house after the trust formally reclaimed it, packed what she could into her car, left behind what she couldn't carry, or couldn't bear to look at. She tried staying with friends. That didn't last. Then an apartment across town. Cheap. Temporary. She applied for jobs beneath what she once considered her level. Most never called back. Reputation travels faster than resumes. One evening Evelyn called. "She's requesting mediation," she said. I closed my eyes. "For what?" "She wants to contest the moral outcome," Evelyn replied. "Not the legal one." I almost laughed. "That's not a thing. People often confuse regret with injustice," Evelyn said. "Does Mom's letter change anything?" I asked. "No," she replied. "But it changes how you might feel." I thought about that long after the call ended. Then 2 days later my sister showed up again. She looked older. Not just tired, emptied. Her coat was thin. Her hair unstyled. Her pride gone. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she said quietly. I stepped aside and let her in. She sat on the couch like it might reject her. "I read the letter again," she said. "Every day." I said nothing. "She saw me," my sister whispered. "All of me." "Yes," I agreed. "And she still loved me," she said desperately. "That has to count for something." "It does," I said gently. "Just not the way you want." Tears slid down her face. "I don't know how to be without taking," she admitted. That confession hung between us. For the first time in my life I saw my sister. Not as a villain, not as a rival, but as someone who had never learned how to stand without leaning on someone else's fear. "You lost power," I said quietly. "Not love." She looked up. "It feels the same." "It isn't," I replied. She wiped her face. "Will you help me?" The question was heavy. "I will help you survive," I said slowly. "I won't help you control." Her shoulders slumped, but she nodded. Over the next weeks I helped her in small, careful ways. I connected her with a counselor, helped her find stable work, set boundaries she hated but respected. No money changed hands. No authority transferred. Just structure. And slowly she changed. Not dramatically. Not miraculously. But honestly. One afternoon she asked, "Why did Mom trust you?" I didn't answer right away. "Because I listened when she spoke," I said. "And I stopped when she said no." My sister nodded like she was finally understanding a language she'd ignored her whole life. Months later we stood together at Mom's grave. No audience. No speeches. Just us. "I miss her," my sister said. "So do I," I replied. "She was stronger than I ever gave her credit for," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "She was." We stood in silence. And for the first time it didn't feel like a battle had been won. It felt like one had ended. But there was still one truth left to face. The inheritance. Not the money. Not the house. Not the power. The lesson. The day I finally closed my mother's trust account, it didn't feel like an ending. Felt like a release. The paperwork was extensive. Months of reconciliation, compliance checks, confirmations from banks and auditors. Every signature carried weight, not because of the money involved, but because it marked the moment my mother's voice no longer needed protection. She had said everything she needed to say. When Evelyn slid the final document across the desk, she didn't rush me. Most people feel relief, she said. Some feel grief. A few feel guilt. I considered that. I feel clarity. She smiled. That's rare. The assets were redistributed exactly as my mother intended. The house was placed into a long-term housing trust for women leaving abusive homes, something Mom had quietly donated to for years without telling anyone. The business was restructured into an employee-owned cooperative, giving stability to people who had worked loyally beside her for decades. The remaining funds were divided into educational grants and healthcare reserves. No headlines. No applause. Just intention. My sister received a final symbolic inheritance. A locked box. Inside it were photos, old report cards, birthday cards Mom had saved, and one final note. You don't need control to be safe. You need truth. When my sister read it, she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically. Honestly. I thought winning meant taking, she said later. She thought winning meant letting go. Yes, I replied. That's the difference. For me, the inheritance was quieter. A sense of confidence I hadn't known I lacked. The understanding that boundaries are not cruelty. That silence can be wisdom. That love doesn't require sacrifice of self. I moved apartments, changed jobs, built a life that felt intentional instead of reactive. Sometimes my sister and I talked. Not often. Not deeply. But sincerely. One evening she asked, "Do you ever resent me?" I considered it carefully. "No," I said. "I resent who I had to become to survive you." She nodded. "I'm trying to become someone else." "That's all anyone can do," I replied. On the anniversary of Mom's death, we gathered small, quiet. No speeches. Just candles. As I watched the flame flicker, I realized something unexpected. My mother hadn't used her death to punish. She used it to teach. And the lesson had reached further than she could have known. Because inheritance isn't about what you receive. It's about what you're trusted to carry forward. People still ask me sometimes why I smiled that night. Not directly. Not out loud. But I see it in their eyes when the story comes up. When someone mentions inheritance disputes or family betrayals, they look at me like I'm holding back the most important part. And maybe I am. Because the smile wasn't about money. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about winning. It was about certainty. When my sister called and told me I got nothing, I already knew something she didn't. My mother had been preparing me. Not with secrets but with understanding. Years before she died, she asked me a question that didn't make sense at the time. "If I left you nothing," she said, "would you still know who you are?" I laughed then. Thought it was hypothetical. Now I understood. The smile came from knowing I wasn't about to lose myself, even if I lost everything else. After the trust closed, I returned to my apartment and found a small package waiting at my door. No return address. Inside was a simple notebook. My mother's handwriting filled every page. Not instructions. Not warnings. Reflections. Stories about her childhood. Regrets she never spoke aloud. Moments she wished she had handled differently with both of us. One entry stopped me cold. I raised one daughter to survive the world. I raised the other to try to control it. Both were mistakes in their own way. I closed the notebook and sat in silence. My sister never asked to be the way she was. She was taught. So was I. But only one of us learned to unlearn. Weeks later, my sister asked if she could come with me to donate the rest of Mom's clothes. We worked quietly, folding, sorting. At one point, she held up a sweater. "She loved this one," she said softly. "Yes," I replied. "I never noticed," she admitted. That was the moment I understood. She hadn't lost the inheritance. She had lost attention. And that loss had shaped her entire life. That night, the same night she called me, I smiled because I finally saw the full picture. My mother didn't choose me over her. She chose responsibility over chaos. She chose trust over fear. She chose silence over spectacle. And she trusted me to hold that choice without turning it into a weapon. The smile wasn't visible to my sister through the phone. But it was real. Because I knew something she was about to learn the hardest way possible. Nothing you take by force ever truly belongs to you. And nothing meant for you can be stolen. Years passed. Not dramatically. Not cinematically, just quietly, which I learned is how real healing happens. The story of the inheritance faded into background noise. Family members stopped whispering. Friends stopped asking. New people entered my life who knew nothing about courtrooms, trusts, or betrayals, and that felt like freedom. My sister and I found a rhythm. Not closeness. Not distance. Something honest. She rebuilt her life slowly without shortcuts. She worked. She struggled. She learned what it meant to hear the word no without turning it into a war. Sometimes she failed. Sometimes she succeeded. And sometimes she called me, not for money, not for authority, but for perspective. That was new. One afternoon, years after Mom's death, my sister said something that stayed with me. I used to think power meant people couldn't leave me, she said. Now I know it means they don't have to stay. I didn't respond right away. Then I said, Mom would have liked that. We visited Mom's grave together that day. No anger. No guilt. Just acknowledgement. Standing there, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to see before. My mother didn't orchestrate a trap. She built a mirror. One daughter saw herself clearly. The other finally did too. As for me, I carried forward what she gave me. Not money. Not property. But steadiness. I became someone who didn't flinch at silence. Someone who didn't rush to fill space with control. Someone who could hear hard truths without turning away. That was the inheritance. And that's why I smiled. Because in the end I got everything.